As presented in a previous movie, the recognition is the first phase of a Contextor RPA bot. It allows to have a base of objects which will be used during the orchestration phase. Contextor is able to recognize all existing applications, in various technologies. Contextor Studio allows the analysis and recognition of the application structure, whatever the application technology. At first, for the beginning of this training, we are going to focus on the most common application technologies, Windows and web. Before practicing with the studio and realize your first automation, let's get into some useful definitions to understand Contextor philosophy. First of all, the entities. A concept, to play with what is inside the script. Why and how do we have to capture objects? And only needed objects? It's important to set strategic criteria to precisely recognize objects, and define parameters to receive and send events from and to running applications. By declaring applications, pages and items, Contextor Studio considers and manages different internal entities. Application entity, communicating with running applications. Page entity, communicating with a page, or even subpage from running applications UI. Item entity, communicating with components of this page. Definition of a desktop application for Contextor. Any exe application running on the desktop and having an UI. Includes following technologies: Windows, Java, Silverlight, Flex, Qt, etc. The DOM tree of a desktop application consists of the tree of all UI components created by the application. Definition of a desktop page, or subpage for Contextor. For Contextor, a page or subpage corresponds to a part of the application UI. A page, or subpage, is a subtree of the DOM tree. The root of this subtree is defined as the root of the page. Any component of the DOM tree may be root of a page. Any component of the DOM tree under the root of a page can be considered as an item of this page. Definition of a web application for Contextor. A web application is a set of web pages that match a same set of criteria. Only a page displayed in an instance of a web browser, e.g., Chrome, Firefox, is a candidate to belong to a web application. Notion of instance: two web pages, belonging to the same web application, but displayed in two different tabs of the browser, are considered as two different application instances. Definition of a web page for Contextor. A web page is the content of a web browser tab or the frame content. Any element from the DOM of a web page is considered an item of this page. The DOM of a web page does not contain its frame's DOM. In the studio, an application is described as a hierarchical structure of items and pages, and optionally subpages. For every application, needed pages and items are successively declared in the studio. On the development workstation, Contextor is installed and all the applications are available. Thanks to specific connectors, Contextor Studio browses and recognizes desired objects in applications. Application by application, pages, subpages and items are graphically set. Once recognized, items can be scripted to implement processes. During the declaration phase, for every needed page, declare every needed item. You don't need to declare all the pages or items of the applications, just those which will be monitored in the orchestration phase. If needed, some declarations may be done later. For example, in another part of the automation, which uses the same screen. There are two main objectives to set criteria to an object. Define sufficiently precise criteria to recognize the targeted entities. Define sufficiently general criteria to resist changes into applications. The setting is mainly realized from the captured data window to the criteria zone. From the captured data window, it's possible to get one or more properties and apply constraint operators, equals, contains, starts, ends, like. Criteria on different properties combined biological and criteria on the same property combined biological or constraints between entities, patterns, subpages, labeled by, etc. During recognition criteria setting, Contextor Studio performs recognition on the different captures, and proposes a screen display, a recognition tool windows, or a tree display, in order to adjust the criteria. This way, we can easily validate declarations, and even offline. Moreover, if applications change, a new capture allows to quickly check what has changed in a page. It exists advanced techniques to recognize objects. These techniques depend also of the technology constraints. Among them, we find must exist, must not exist property. Recognizes a set of related components, rather than a single component. Declare another item and use it as ancestor. Declare another item and use it as label. Set the item as accursed and use the appropriate index value by script. We'll see all of this in next videos. In this example, two applications have been declared, with pages and items. We saw that the automation script includes those declarations, through entities. The automation script includes those declarations, through entities. There's a special entity, called the process, which is involved in performing calculations, or storing data coming from the applications, in internal memory. The script is receiving technical events from the applications, while running. When they start, when a page is loading, or unloading, and when a button is clicked, for example. Contextor also executes monitoring actions. Click on a button. Read or write a value in a field. Select an item in a list. In the same way, functional events are sent from an entity to another, in the script. I guess you're now ready to look at a demonstration of the studio, before realizing your first automation script.